What up, folks? What it do? It's your boy, comedian Mike Goodwin, with another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Man, thank y'all so much for tuning in and being along for the ride. Have some great insights today that I will share with you from my life of comedy. And also, I will share with you some of the best advice ever that you're going to hear today. So, we typically start off the show with On the Road, because that's where I spend a lot of time, on the road. And I was on the road. Man, I was on the road. I was on the road Thursday. Well, actually, I started on the road on Wednesday. So I had a keynote for, I don't even want to try to say that, SAGPO, the acronym, but the name of the organization is the Association of Governmental Purchasing Officers. These folks that work in procurement. That's just another way to say people that spend money. Yeah, I like talking to people that spend money, especially on comedy and keynote speakers. So, was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on that Thursday morning, but came up on Wednesday night, and I actually was able to pop in on the folks. They were having a happy hour, a little kind of, icebreaker, bonding time, where they had a DJ who was doing a little limbo. How low can you go? And they started doing the line dances, started doing the Cupid shuffle and the wobble and the electric slide. Somebody I was talking to this weekend said line dances are for old people. That's why she don't do line dances. I can't argue that. I think the people that run out to the floor are a little bit more mature in age. But I do like to hear the wobble. Get in there. Yeah, yeah. Get in there. I like that. I could just listen to that part of the song. Just somebody just keep get in there on loop. Get in there. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of on loop, this is a side note. If you have not seen, there's a clip from the SEC today. I think it's an older clip, but it's a clip with Tim Tebow, I think Marty Smith, my big dude, I forgot my man's name, and Paul. What's Paul? He has a show on the SEC Network. But they basically, they're having a conversation about whether it's Tim and Marty get their hair done. When they would not get hair done, but when they get there, they go to the barbershop. Like, what do they tell the barber? And my man was like, what do you say? You cut it to the right, you cut it to the left. And so Marty's like, no, man, I tell him number 2. Then I cut it up, faded, and then give me a faux hawk. And then Tim says to Paul, hey, Paul, what do you tell the guy? Now, Paul Feinbaum. Yeah, so Paul has no hair on the top. So when Tim says that, when he says that to Paul, the rest of the cast loses it. I think Mark is, but they lose it. They absolutely, and it makes its rounds on social media time and time and time again. And I just keep watching it. If I see it, if it shows up on my timeline, I actually added it to my story on Instagram. If I see it, I'm gonna watch it probably 7 to 8 times in a row. Talking about watching something on loop. When I see that, I do exactly what they tell me to do from the wobble. I get in there. Yeah, yeah. So if you haven't seen that clip, I would implore you, We'll find that clip. If you just want to laugh, and there's a couple of things that's funny to me. Now, you may have different things that stand out to you, but for me, what was funny is watching Tim Tebow in the whole clip. Now, first, the way that the angles of the camera is shot, you don't actually see Tim asking the question. So when the question is asked, it's either Marcus or Tim. I'm pretty certain it's Tim. So that's the first thing. I don't think of Tim Tebow being hilarious. So the way that Tim asked the question absolutely sets off a chain reaction. So he asked the question, but as he's asking the question, the camera's on Paul. And Paul's about to make a point of something else. And you can see him realizing, oh man, the joke's on me. Like he's a good sport in the whole clip. I mean, it's a great, I'm telling you, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't demeaning. It was just good old fun. So when Tim asked the question, I think it's Tim that's asking the question. They have the camera on Paul. So Paul was going in to make a point, but he concedes that, oh man, yeah, I'm gonna have to sit in this one for a second. So when he kind of looks at Tim and acknowledges, oh man, I'm the butt of the joke, they then pan the camera back to Marty and Marcus and Tim. Marty's like, he has like a fan or something, so he's like hitting the table with the fan. Tim's covering up his face, and by this time, Marcus's laugh is just, Marcus Spearman, I think is his name, is slaying you. He's laughing. Then Marty begins to answer the question of like, keep some on the side. So then Marcus says, on the sides, keep the sides. He said, keep the sides like twice in this funny voice. By this time, his hands is on Tim Tebow's shoulder. Marty's touching Marcus. So there's something about, and maybe this is just a comedian in me, but it's something about when you're laughing and you're touching each other. It's like an electric current where the laugh, your laugh connects with their laugh. So I enjoy the moment where they like have their hands. It's like everyone's touching except for Paul. Paul's over there just being ridiculed. But in that moment, if you just watch it, by the time it's ended, Marcus has his glasses off and wiping his face. He's crying. Tim Tebow is just about to pass out because when he says, "Yeah, what do they say to you, Paul?" I was in the airport yesterday. Oh man, my shoulders were just leaping up. I just couldn't. I couldn't stop, man. And so talking about being on a loop. So if you have not had the pleasure of watching that, please find that clip. I don't know if we can put this in the show notes because I hear people talk about show notes in their podcast. I don't even know if we have show notes. So I'll ask my guy, Jeremy, because he's responsible for editing. Maybe if there's some show notes, we'll add the clip down in the show notes. The other thing, so that was on Thursday. That was at Myrtle Beach. So I did that event. That morning, actually, I had a classmate that introduced me, Maya Williams, formerly known as Maya Glover. She introduced me. It was so cool to see her, and she works with the organization. There was another young woman that's from Camden, where we're from. And so when I came down to the meet and greet that night, Maya was like, yeah, this young lady's from Camden too. And the girl immediately was like, yeah, but y'all are way older than I am. And we just was like, what? And if you looked at her, like she wasn't that much younger than us. Like she looked to be our age. But when Maya said it, she was definitely like, "Oh yeah, y'all are much older than me," and we were offended. I was offended. I was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, you are not. You're not that much different." And then find out she was only 3 years younger than us. She was like, "Y'all way older than me." You would have thought that we were like her uncles and aunts' age. So yeah, did that on Thursday, drove back home a Thursday afternoon, and then from Thursday that next day so we were in the midst of a potential tropical storm Nicole. So tropical storm Nicole, I'd gotten the word on the way back home that schools were doing e-learning on Friday. They were, as a precaution to the tropical storm that was headed our way. There was some concern about whether or not the weather would be at a point where I could get out, because I had to leave that Friday morning and to fly to Houston, and I did an event for a friend of ours, a mastermind business, a person that's a part of a business mastermind that I'm a part of, Brandy Williams with Child Care Millionaire. She had a conference. I think it was a 3-day conference in Houston at the Westin Galleria. It was incredible, phenomenal. I did a comedy show on that Friday night, but she had speakers, she had events, she had the DJ, she had a person on stilts, she had a concert after me. They just had a incredible conference that I was a part of in Houston. Now, interesting part about that trip, so the weather was bad when I woke up at the house, but by the time I got to the airport, it's pretty clear. But then we're flying into Atlanta, so the storm was making its way from Atlanta to South Carolina. So we had a little bit of delay. This was the first weekend that all of my flights made on times and connections. I made it back. Typically, I'll make it out to my events, but coming home, things will get delayed. But I made it all the way and back without any issues in terms of air travel. So I flew out of South Carolina to Houston, and then I had to get my Uber on. And I don't know what happened, because I was watching something on my iPad. I think I was watching an episode of something I downloaded. And I don't know if my Uber driver pulled out in front of a person, but I happened to look out the window, and there was a car like right beside us giving my driver the business. My man wasn't happy, and my driver was just straightforward, like nothing ever happened. And man, this man was ranting and raving. I really thought something bad other than him ranting and raving was gonna happen, because he had that type of energy, and she was just driving without a care in the world. So I don't know if she pulled out in front of him. I don't know what happened. I just wanted to get out of that car, so we got out of the Uber and made it to the hotel. Now, what was interesting about the Westin Galleria, there's 2 Westins hotels inside of this gallery. There's, I guess, White Oak and then the Westin Galleria. So I ended up, of course, at White Oak, because that's just how my travel, me and travel, that's where the challenge is in my life. So it wasn't that challenging, because they give you a map and it's like a 5-minute walk. So you walk through the mall. Now in this Galleria, they had everything. They had all the stores. You could just say a name, an Apple store, the Balenciaga Dotolito. I don't know the name of that, but y'all know it's the very expensive brand. The t-shirts are like $500. And the word is very difficult to say. I know it when I see it. I'll probably get the correct name in the show notes. The Balenciaga Lido la. I don't own any of it, so. But they didn't have a movie theater in this place. They had like 4 levels of stores, no movie theater. And it was a lot going on. But Brandy had an outstanding event. Then that next morning, I'm kind of navigating because I had early morning flight. You know, the flight was maybe the airport was about 5 minutes, not 5 minutes. The airport was about 40 minutes to 30 to 40 minutes, depending on traffic. People always will tell you that. How far is it from the airport? Well, depending on traffic. Well, I move in the morning. I move when nothing is stirring. And so I ended up waiting for my Uber driver for like at least 15 minutes because I don't know. That's just what goes down with my travel. Like the things that you think would be the simplest things, for whatever reason, I just find myself in scenarios. So, so I was talking to some friends, other friends in the mastermind that was there, a guy named Ephraim and then another young lady named Tiffany. They both live in Houston. Ephraim's more of the guy that he doesn't need to be in the airport a long time. He can get there right as they're boarding and he good. Tiffany is on the other end of the spectrum. She needs to be there 2 hours beforehand. So Ephraim was asking her, hey, Mike got to go to the airport in the morning. What time would you leave? Now, I'm kind of in the middle of that. Like, I don't want to be there right as people are boarding, but I don't want to be there hours before either. So I guess I got there because it was so frustrating because when I was waiting for the Uber, it was just it's a simple, like, pick me up at the Western Galleria. But if you're looking at the app, it was showing her, she was like 5 minutes away. Then she was 2 minutes away. Then she was 4 minutes away. And then she would be 3 minutes away, 2 minutes away. Then she would be 5 minutes away. And then it just kept showing her turning around in this like octagon or so. I don't know what she was doing. So I called. I'm like, hey, I keep watching the app and it's saying that you 2 minutes away, but then you're 5 minutes away. And I had been standing outside for a minute. Like it was, I'm pretty time conscious. And so I had just been random stuff happen even then, because it's about at that moment, it's probably 4:30 in the morning. Because I woke up before my alarm went off, kind of startled. Like I felt like I missed something. And I didn't. So I woke up probably 20 minutes before. I think I had the alarm set for 4:20, but I woke up at 4. So I just went ahead and got started, ready to go. So by the time that I was dressed and ready to almost leave the hotel, the alarm went off. So that was at 4:20. So my plan, I think initially was getting at 4:20 and to be downstairs to leave by 5. I think 5 was kind of the optimum time to have the Uber called. But I ended up getting down there earlier, but I think I still left closer to 5 because she just kept going in circles, round and around. The Uber was going and I was hot. But the guy at the desk asked me like, hey man, do you ever perform in Denmark, South Carolina? It's like 4 in the morning. He's like, you perform in Denmark, South Carolina? Because my best friend went to school at Voorhees. It was just the most random question. And I think I've mentioned I've done a show in Voorhees in Denmark, South Carolina. Yeah, because I made mention of the live podcast that there was some gentleman from Denmark who my wife thought was from Denmark, South Carolina. Then I was having a hard time remember Denmark Technical College. Well, again, Denmark shows up again in my life in Houston, where a guy asked me that I perform. Have I ever performed? It was just like, hey, you got any shows coming up in Denmark at Voorhees? I was like, what? So that happens. And people, it's 4:00 in the morning. Like he just wanted to say something. My man just wanted to talk. So the woman finally makes her way. She gets me. We make our way to the airport. So we get to the airport. And then I'm flying from Houston to Salt Lake City to a place called Palm Springs, California. So from when I get to Salt Lake City, we got a short connection. We find ourselves at the terminal, and if you look up on the screen, I'm looking at my app. Let's say boarding starts at 7:30. Well, if you look on the screen, it's basically saying boarding, but it's not saying boarding in the app, and it's like 7:25. So it's earlier than the time that boarding says on the app, but on the screen it says boarding. So I'm looking at, and then there is one of these terminals where there were like 4 gates in a right, all right next to each other. So I just go scan my boarding pass, and then you take a bus. So you walk down this thing. I was like, oh, this is not good. So I guess they're expanding the Salt Lake City airport. It's not big enough for them just to have terminals or gates where you can walk out onto the plane. They got to take you to another part of the airport. So I initially, because I had a seat assigned, so when you get on a bus, you typically thinking, oh, this is one of those puddle jumpers, one of those flights where they got to weigh you, and you might not have a seat, and you have a seat belt that you share with the whole row, but it wasn't that case. The airport just is not big enough to meet the capacity, so they just took us to our flight or our plane, which was not outside of the gate where we were. So that began the foolery. So by the time I got to Palm Springs, that was unlike a airport I'd ever been to. It was kind of outdoor. It just perfect weather. It was in the valley. I think I was told they have like Burning Man, Coachella's out there, and everything's expensive. It's very expensive. Matter of fact, I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express, and I think the room rate was like $269 a night. Then the most reasonable place was like a Best Western. Let's say let's say the rooms were $169 a night. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. Especially when it's me. Like if I had my wife with me, but I can sleep in a lot of places. I've gotten a little more bougie over the years, but initially when I first started, man, I just wrap up on the top. I just keep all my clothes on, sleep on the top cover, and keep it moving. But I was going to stay at this Best Western, which I've never had a bad experience at Best Western. Just don't typically stay at Best Western. Went to book the room, and they was like, oh, you need 2 nights to get this great rate. It was like, what? Oh, we got rooms available, but you need to stay another night. And that was part of my problem. So issues I have with travel, they seem like they are first world problems. They're not problems that the typical person would have, that people, at your job, the printer doesn't work. No, like the issue I had in terms of travel in California, I flew into the airport, I guess, which is a regional small airport, but I don't think they get a lot of flights out. So I flew into Palm Springs, which is actually was all right, because most times the place that I'm fly into, if it doesn't have a lot of Delta flights, I have to fly in another airport. So that's the same airport I'm flying into and out of. So this was different for me to fly into Palm Springs. They had flights Delta into, but if I wanted to leave, they had no Sunday flights. I would have to wait till Monday to fly out. So now I had to look around for another airport, which I ended up going to Orange County, which was 2 hours away from Cathedral City. That's where the event was. I did an event for Agape International Children's Ministry. They do ministry in Uganda. They have a lot of they have churches, they have adoption homes or centers that they work with. They do a lot. They do a lot in Uganda. So this was a fundraiser and silent auction for AICM. And the event was great. It was a great event. So thanks for Sandy and Aaron, who were my hosts, and met Pastor Chuck at the church that we were at. a great night. It was a great night. But my challenge was I could fly into Palm Springs, but if I wanted to fly out of Palm Springs, I would have to wait. I would stay until Monday, which you're not gonna do is have me away from my family unnecessarily for flight. So now I had to get a rental and drive down to John Wayne. I guess that was the name. John Wayne International. It wasn't international, but it was John Wayne Airport in Orange County, which was, like I said, 2 hours away. So here I am hustling because the event, I think by the time I finished and got back into the room after getting something, it was 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock Pacific time. Not specific time, but Pacific time. I like Pacific. See, I'm trying to be funny now. I can't say the word Pacific. I don't often hear people say Pacific time zone. Like we say Eastern Standard Time. I don't hear Pacific Standard Time. I don't hear that. Maybe because I live on the East Coast and we say, even if people are talking about time, they often will say Mountain. I don't know if I hear people say Pacific Standard Time. I've never heard Pacific Time Zone. Like I don't think I've ever seen PTZ. And I typically don't see Eastern Time Zone as either Eastern Standard Time, which is very interesting. So had to get into bed because I had to get up at possibly 3:30 to give myself 2 hours. And I think my flight, I'm always on an early flight. So very seldom, unless I go the day before. If my event is on the same day, I'm on the first flight out, one of the first flights. So made my way down to Orange County at the wee hours of the morning. And that's the other thing about traveling. On the highway, I saw the Joshua Tree National State Park. I was like, oh, that would be cool to go to. I drove by casinos. I don't have the opportunity to do those things when I travel. People often think of my travel, I think, similar to how they travel on vacation. But when I'm traveling, I'm really commuting, just like you commute to work. So when you commute to work, you're not like, oh, let me go to this cool coffee shop that I pass every day. Like, no, that's just something that you pass on your commute to work. My commute just happened to take me to other states and airports, but it's still a commute. It's not a vacation travel situation. So was able to get to John Wayne, flew back from Atlanta yesterday, and then my family and we went to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which was great. It was really good, but people on social media was telling me how amazing it was, and so it met expectations. It was a great film, and I had a good time with the family. And I didn't go to sleep. I typically will fall asleep at the movie theater, especially when those seats recline the way that they do. Oh, baby. And if the movie's over like 30 minutes, your boy is going to sleep. Now, for the best advice ever. So, there's going to be a little, I understand. It's going to be a little tight. It's tight, but it's right. I'm going to say something. Maybe people going to feel the way they feel. But this is some of the best advice ever that I received. And I received this advice serving in the United States military. A lot of experiences that I've had that I refer back to in my life happened when I was in the Army. So this is the best advice ever. Now, again, this is going to be you might need to put your tough skin on, people. Put on your tough skin. And I'm also talking about from my perspective. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about what you do or don't do. This is all Mike Goodwin. So don't get in your feelings about what I'm saying, but I'm going to be honest, truthful, transparent. And I hope I don't trigger you or cause you to think about things in a different way that you typically haven't thought about them. But for me, The best advice ever that I heard in the Army that I will share today is don't cheat your body. My drill sergeant said that all the time. If we want to run and people kind of falling out to run, don't cheat your body. If you were doing push-ups and you were kind of hitting muscle failure and you wanted to quit, don't cheat your body. Or if we were doing PT and you wasn't giving your best effort, just kind of out there lollygagging, drill sergeants will say, don't cheat your body. So that's something I've tried to maintain throughout the course of my adult life, is the attitude where I don't cheat my body, meaning that I'm not going to neglect my physical form. This has been quite a challenge for me, just in general, because it takes discipline. It's very difficult to do the things that you know you should. My therapist says don't say should. The things that you ought to be doing, especially for your physical conditioning. Now, I've found myself with another challenge as it relates to this, and it's my faith. This might be a little controversial, but this is my perception of how I've seen this as a man of faith and as a man of fitness. I don't know if I would say I'm a man of fitness, but a man that is very mindful of his fitness. I think those things have been at odds at times, not for me, but from what I've seen over the course of my life. I've just not seen the church put a lot of faith in taking care of your body. Like the church, in many instances, will pray for a miracle, will pray for a healing, will thank God for being Jehovah Jireh. But I haven't heard a lot of practical information around fitness and wellness. I've actually heard commentary that it feels like is in conflict with wellness and fitness. You know, one of the things I've heard, especially as a younger man, you would hear pastors and ministers talk about the gym as if the gym was Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, men of God would say they don't go to the gym. Have you been to the gym lately? These women are in here naked. And I know me. I wouldn't be in there working out. I would be in there gawking out, eyeing out, visioning out. I wouldn't be working out. I would be looking out. And that gets a lot of laughter sometimes in churches. And folks will say, you know, I just don't know what these folks are wearing to the gym. They in the gym and they got all the breastplate of righteousness out, and their bosoms are overflowing with spandex and Lululemon and all these type things, right? And so there is some conversation around like going to the gym puts men, especially, I'm talking from my paradigm, puts men, righteous men, in compromising situations because we don't have control of our flesh. So instead of having control of our eyes and our flesh and our desires, we just chose not to. I'm not going to put myself in that environment, which is fine. But to indict the gym because you're just a dirty old man is very questionable, right? And then even as it relates to that, have you been in the gym? I'm like, have you been outside the house? Have you been to the mall? Have you been to Target? Have you been to the airport? Like, people are going to dress how they dress in many cases. Have you been to church? I just think that, I mean, we live, I mean, in my, like when I was a kid growing up, like oversized clothes was the style. So I can remember a time where I could see maybe a young woman who had a great physique, a great shape, voluptuous, but because of what she was wearing, you just couldn't identify that. We wore baggy, we wore like sweatsuit, we wore Adidas jumpsuits and athletic gear that wasn't necessarily the modern athletic gear. Now athletic gear is more form fitting. It's more skin. It looks like skin in a lot of regards. And the clothes are just more provocative nowadays. That's just what it is. It's just people are body positive, whether they have positive bodies or not. People out here showing the stuff, showing the goods. Matter of fact, at the event I was at Friday night, I was having a conversation with a young woman. She was just like, this generation, they don't, I get body positive, but come on, man. Everybody don't need everything, don't need to be jiggling. If you jiggle, that might not be the thing. Now, but that's kind of that's the commentary I've heard from churches around working out. So I've heard like they're naked in gyms, or I've also heard, there's a scripture, and I was gonna reference the actual scripture. I'm gonna reference the scripture, but I wanted to have the book and verse. But it basically says that bodily exercise profits little, right? It profits little, but you should be focused on building up the spirit, man, building up your faith, building up the most precious faith, your inner man. And so that has produced a conflict with the church and fitness from what I've seen. It's just, or even if you spend a lot of time in the gym, there's conversations around, well, you spending that much time in the gym with a trainer, I've seen this thing go bad. You got these young women, they go and they want to redefine themselves and they change their body, but now they fall out of love with the person they're with, or they may be in a illicit relationship with the trainer. It's just never a lot of positive commentary in the church around people that take care of their bodies. There's a weight of guilt. When you spend all that time in the gym, do you spend all that time in prayer? Spend all that time in the word? Spend all that time fasting? Spend the time helping the orphanage and the widows? And and then again, so here's the other real hard truth. I look at the brothers in the church, good grief. Them boys look like they're in their third trimester. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about obese guys. I'm talking about guys that are have average frames. They got overabundant stomachs. And that's why I'm struggling myself, like in terms of my, if there's an area, there's a problem spot, it's the stomach, right? Because I like to eat the cookies and the cakes and all ice creams and milkshakes and the stuff, right? But it takes discipline. Now, and again, here's the conflict of what the church and the word, because the word you receive says, want you to be above average, more than a conqueror. You should have an above average marriage. You should be above average parent. You have a above average employee, above average manager. What about your health? What about your wellness? We're below average in many regards as it relates to that. And I'm even of the point, like, don't cheat your body. I used to be in a place where I was trying to get a particular physique, be at a particular size, and I still want some of those things. But I think the overarching theme of what I try to do with my wellness is just to be fit, be is wellness more so than working out or getting a six pack or getting a particular look, want my clothes to fit a particular way. Now I'm understanding that, okay, there's a nutrition component that goes along with this. There's a sleep component that goes around. I mean, I've seen more folks in Christians, but they don't want to go to sleep. Go your behind the bed. Get sleep, rest. That's what the Bible says, cast your cares. Sleep. So, don't cheat your body. That's the advice I give you. And again, I struggle. I struggle looking at folks in my community, of the faith-based community, African-American folks, because, again, that diet, man, we out here eating our ancestors' food, and we are not working the way our ancestors worked. We sit behind desks. You know, we in offices all day, and the ancestors, they was out chopping wood, thinking God, and doing things of laborious. There were laborious efforts. And I just know that I wouldn't have, you know, how I explained at the top of the show, like how much travel, if I wasn't physically in a place of, well, I couldn't pull this stuff off. There's a joke that I do. I skip around rooms, and people often are like, bro, you did that twice and still was in your breath. And I'm like, come on, man, it's not that hard. Like, I didn't just run a marathon. I know most folks aren't skipping around, but you can't skip around a room twice. But in church, we'll run around. You'll run around on Sunday, but won't run on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So don't cheat your body. I would hope that you feel where I'm coming from. And again, you don't have to have the beach body. You don't have to have the, ooh, when I take off my shirt, Hollywood's come knocking. But man, go out, go and sweat. Sweat for 20 minutes a day. Walk around your neighborhood, jump rope. Get on the treadmill. Like just do something that causes your body, your heart, your endurance to, you know, I run, and I'm bigger. I'm much bigger than I was as a younger man. But there's a particular loop that I run over by my house, and it's just for mental toughness. It's simply for me to tell myself, I mean, I think it's similar to fasting as a spiritual principle. I'm going to tell my body, you're not in control of me. So when I run that loop, I'm telling my body, we're going to run this. I know you want to stop. I know you want to quit. We're going to run this loop. And when you fast, you're telling your body, no, I'm going to deny myself, and I'm going to build up my spirit. So I think that there's a place where this is our temple. We talk about the body being a temple, but we don't want to maintain the temple, especially over time. And especially in the church, I just look at people, I'm like, man, come on, man, do something. Do something. And a lot of times folks are encountered with sickness and illness, and things oftentimes are preventable. But then a well person, somebody takes care of themselves or gets sick, and you see, that's why I don't work out. People love to tell you why they don't work out. You know, he ran 3 miles a day and had a heart attack. Yeah, that's because his wife was cheating on him. That ain't got nothing to do with his health. That's because he was going bankrupt in his business. So don't cheat your body. This is the best advice ever today. Whatever your level of fitness, do something. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking that you commit, be disciplined, especially people of faith, folks that have a great prayer life, folks that read the scriptures, religious. Like, you can't be so disciplined in this area and not in this, like, or even cookies. Like don't eat the whole bag of chips. Don't eat dessert every day. Don't eat cookies every. But this does trouble me. This does trouble me when as I get older and as I go to a lot of churches. And folks, they'll tell people they're in sin because they smoke and they drink and they cuss and they fight. But nobody ever says you in sin because of gluttony. You have no self-control as it relates to your diet, bad eating habits. So, I don't think this has been super funny. This doesn't feel funny to me. But yeah, that's the best advice ever. Don't cheat your body. So, I think that it would be great to figure out the benefits of active living. The benefits, and that could be walking, that could be doing yoga, Pilates, riding your bike, going for a walk on a trail. That's what I'm thinking is the most important thing as it relates to not cheating your body. And even as it relates to monitoring your weight. Like, you don't have to say, hey, I want to be down to 125. You just say, hey, I need to keep my weight within this range. And if you don't get on the scale, only time you get on the scale is when you go to your doctor's appointments. It's like, how can you measure? How can you change what you don't measure? How can you make adjustments to what's not being evaluated? So I think it's vitally important. I think the benefits of being a person that's interested in wellness is just it helps you combat things, burnout, stress. The stress is something that there's not a lot of conversation that folks are talking about. I'm a part of Daniel's Den, which is a community with Pastor Darius Daniels, PD. And I was watching some of the trainings, and one of the things he was recently talking about was something that you just don't often hear a lot about, is good stress. You know, when I think about stress, I typically think about bad stress. I think about stress of dealing with family members, stress of not having enough, stress of it rained and you identified that there's a leak in your roof, like problematic stress. But the stress he talked about was stress from progress. So you have stress from progress and you have stress from problems. I'm very mindful of the stress from problems. I'm not as mindful of the stress from progress. And I have a lot of stress from progress. There's a stress that comes along with being successful that I think I totally disregarded or didn't take into full account how stressful it is to be winning. Winning causes stress. Growing and scaling and developing and thriving inherently includes stress. That's just something I just took for granted. I really didn't. I didn't add to the equation, and I'll because I thought I was going to talk about it today, but podcast went a little longer with what I was sharing. But I want to talk about at some point some of the challenges that I've had from good stress. That's a good problem to have. People say, man, that's a good problem to have. But yeah, it's stressful. And I've never had a conversation with anyone about this. I never even thought that this would be part of what would happen when you became successful. So when you don't cheat your body, it allows you to navigate stress at a higher level. So I would encourage you to don't cheat your body. Don't cheat your body, people. Don't cheat your body. That's how they would say it. That's how my drill song. Don't cheat your body, good one. And so That has been the best advice ever. And now we'll wrap this podcast up with what you're not going to do. Now, what y'all not going to do is not send in questions. I haven't had many folks send in questions. I have a Ask the Bowtie segment. You can send your questions to info@comedianmikegoodwin.com. I would love to hear from you. Would love to answer your questions. Hadn't had a lot of questions. I have had a few questions. Thank you so much for the folks that have sent questions. Would love to hear from you on the Ask the Bowtie segment. But I also have every podcast or what you're not going to do segment. And so I would typically go through the USA Today, but I saw something on Google that was like, hey, bro, excuse me. What you're not going to do is tell me people out here doing this. So I saw this story. It says, husband, wife lose teaching jobs after students find explicit OnlyFans account. Just when you say, man, I've heard it all, something else hits your ear gates. Come on, man. 2 teachers in Arizona lost their job after students found their OnlyFans account that featured a video made in a classroom, according to news reports. These are middle school science teacher. I'm not going to say her name. Her and her husband. They are former employees of this particular school district. Middle school students found explicit content made of the peers, that's the last name, the OnlyFans account that began circulating amongst themselves, although it's not known how the students found the content in the first place. In a statement, the woman said she and her husband began filming the explicit content because their teacher's salary was no longer enough to support their family. Come on, man. You trying to tell me there are no other ways to get money? There's other ways to get money. Let's think about some few ways that a teacher can get money. Tutoring, that's a great way to get money when you're a teacher. You could do online tutoring sessions. You could, because you're online already. You got the camera, you got the videos. Tutor with your clothes on, please. She said, children is the most important thing to me. Now, these people have children. Can you imagine going to school, your classmates got pictures of your parents? Like, how you rebound from that? You talking about counseling. You talking about some damage. The woman said that he was already spending countless hours outside of my contract time on extra school activities. I did not think it was fair to have to sacrifice my own children's time because our professional salary did not pay enough. They began filming content at the beginning of the summer to pay for the necessities. So I chose an anonymous name as well as blocking the entire state of Arizona on OnlyFans, so it wasn't accessible to anyone living in the state. But she admitted that she made some content in the classroom and advertised it, said it was done after hours on the weekends with no students present. Despite her efforts, the content eventually became public knowledge. Bro, ma'am, what else can a teacher do to make money? And you can make money online. So let's do. So we got tutoring. You can do science tutoring. You can probably do. You could do online. Let's do some SAT tutoring. I think that standardized testing tutoring. I guess tutoring would be, but they're different branches because you could tutor the content of science teachers. But let's say there's AP courses that if a science teacher is a proficient science teacher, she probably could tutor some AP courses. Let's get away from maybe even science. Let's say you could work for Uber Eats You can work for Amazon. You can deliver packages. Like, you can start a podcast about science and get some science sponsors to sponsor your podcast. That could be. But what you're not gonna do is tell me that you gotta get on the computer and put stuff out on the internet. As a teacher of adult, you work at a school. That's not adult teaching. You should not be doing adult activities online. Bro, I'm at a loss. I'm literally, what is going on in Arizona? Two more what you're not gonna do. Another what you're not gonna do. This is simple. This is a hack. As it relates to travel and rental cars. There used to be a time when I rented a car. I'm not a fan. Let me say this again. I'm not a fan of renting cars. It's always issues. But there used to be a time when you get the rental car and someone would come outside, do the walkthrough together, take it, make notes of all the issues. Then you pull off. But now they just give you the keys and be like, hey, enjoy the rental car. And you'll get a letter from the rental car place like a month later saying, hey, you are responsible for a crack in the window. And you're like, no, man, that crack was in the window when I got in that car. So what you're not going to do when you rent a rental car and they don't go out there and inspect it with you, what you're not going to do is not take pictures of the rental car. I got random rental car pictures in my phone before I pull off from anywhere, so that if I get a letter saying I owe $119 for some crack that's in the windshield, that was in the windshield when I got the rental car, or some, something that happened on the left side, right, whatever the case may be, make sure that you're taking pictures of any issues, anything that you think is questionable. Take a picture, so when they send you that letter, because that's why they try to get me, send me a letter and say, hey, man, you responsible. I'm like, no. And I don't think I took a letter this particular, I don't think I took a picture this particular time, but I remember all the, because that was a particular day that I had rented this car and they didn't take my credit card. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast, but it was a ordeal. And then after that whole ordeal, I had another 2 hours to drive. And then they're going to send me an additional bill about, I was like, nah, bro, what you're not going to do is be asking your boy for some more money when y'all done already put me through the ringer. That's what you're not going to do. So a travel hack, if you're renting cars, make sure that you take pictures of anything on the car that you may think that's problematic when you return it. And typically, if they're gonna send you a letter, it'll be about a month. It won't be very long. You're not gonna get it 6 months from now, a letter from a rental car place. But just take pictures, put them in a folder in your phone, or just have them in the gallery. And then when you get that letter, you can say, hey, let me shoot you an email. This is the pictures that I took before I left. So this is my proof. And just do that. If no one goes out there with you, just make that a habit. Just have that in front of your mind that if, okay, I'm renting a car and they're going to tell you, oh, it's fine, everything's good. Nope. Make sure you take pictures. Make sure you do your own inspection, walk around. Because what you're not going to do is send me a bill after I've already paid the bill. And last but not least, what you're not going to do, hey, I'm not a big energy drink guy. Like, there's certain energy drinks that I'm good with because they, low calorie, the stuff. But I'm just not throwing back. I do like the Red Bull from time to time, but I'm just not like throwing them back. I got my hands on something called C4 energy drink. Now, mind you, C4, I'm familiar with it. C4 is a pre-workout. There's pre-workout, it's some powder. You put in some water, you shake it up, and then you go work out. You feel a little boost, a little stronger, give you a little extra energy. So I'm at my gym with Jimmy Leach, the fat burning king, and he had some of these C4 energy drinks in the cooler. And this particular flavor, I think it's strawberry watermelon ice. And I went on the C4 website. They actually have a Starburst type flavor. They have a Skittles flavor. What you're not going to do is drink an entire can of this stuff, people. That's get you a little shot glass amount, because for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, this energy drink. I'm in the workout. I'm pretty good with energy drink. Hey, this C4 will have you. Look, I've never smoked crack. Never smoked crack. I don't even know if I've been in an area. I don't know if I've been in an area where people have been smoking crack. Like, when I walk through the hotels, it doesn't matter what hotel it is now. Folks are smoking cannabis in hotels. It don't matter. I'm not even talking about Colorado. Like, I'm not even talking about California. You could be in Tennessee and the weed smoke is ubiquitous. So I have walked through areas where there's contact with weed. I don't know if I had any crack contact. I'm not familiar with crack contact. But if I were to have had that, I'm certain it would feel like drinking a whole can of the C4 energy drink. Look, hey, I'm not telling you not to drink this stuff. I'm just telling you not to drink more than 4 sips of it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you, stay off the can, the whole can. Share a can with 17 other people. You should have just enough where 17 other people can get something out of this can, and it was delicious. That was the other problem. It was very good, and I was drinking it. And I was like, man, that tastes like, and the stuff didn't just kick in. So like the pre-workout stuff didn't just like feel good. And it's something on the bottle, on the can, says superhuman performance. That's already a red flag. Red flag is a real shiny, attractive can. Red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 is very delicious, very tasty. Number 3, superhuman performance. I don't need superhuman performance. I'm working out at the gym so I can skip around the room. I don't play SEC football. I'm not in the NFL. There's nothing in my life that requires me to have superhuman performance. I was on America's Got Talent. That did not require superhuman performance. It required a great performance, a really good performance. There's no activity that I'm actively engaged in that would require me to output superhuman performance. So stay away from that C4 energy drink. Not stay away from it. Stay away from drinking the entire. I drank the entire can in one sitting. I was twitching. My eyes were glassy. I was, yeah. Whatever they do with those drugs that in Hollywood, like they say like the party. I felt like I understood how people feel when they party like that. My insides were tingling, my outsides like I will never in my life drink another entire can of C4 energy drink. What you're not gonna do is catch your boy downing another can of this delicious elixir, because it's delicious. It's absolutely incredible. But the way that it made my body feel, I don't want any of those problems again. So thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. I'm your boy, your host, the bow-tied comedian, Mike Goodwin. Please share, subscribe, rate the podcast. I don't think I have no ratings on Spotify. So if you're on Spotify, please rate the podcast. That's how other people can find it. That's how I can grow, let folks know about it. You can follow me on social media. I'm at Comedian Mike Goodwin on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Bowtie Comedy. Or you just go to my website, MikeGoodwin.com. And I look forward hope to see you soon, checking out another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. It's your boy, Mike Goodwin. Peace.